The European Commission's decision to reduce tariffs on Tesla vehicles imported from China is shaking up the electric vehicle market. While Tesla benefits from lower tariffs, Chinese EV exports are declining, adding to trade tensions. Meanwhile, China is hitting back with an investigation into EU dairy products, intensifying the economic standoff. The EU has cut tariffs on Tesla vehicles made in China from 20.8% to 9%. Other Chinese EV makers still face higher tariffs, ranging from 17 to 36.3%. Tesla's tariff reduction is expected to boost sales across Europe. China's EV exports to the EU fell by 30% year-on-year in June, with a 14.6% decline in the first half of 2024. These drops are linked to the EU's provisional tariffs on China-made EVs, signalling growing trade tensions between the regions. Meanwhile, China's biggest car maker BYD's tariff rate was lowered to 17% and Geely's rate was cut to 19.3%. Despite the tariffs, BYD continues to grow its market share, reaching 8.5% of the EU market in July. The company also plans to launch its affordable Seagull model in the region next year. In response to the bloc's tariffs on Chinese EVs, Beijing has launched an anti-dumping investigation into imported EU dairy products. The move marks an escalation in the trade dispute, with EU dairy exports to China valued at more than $2 billion in 2023. Joining me now from London is Jim Saker, Director of the Centre for Automotive Management and President of the Institute of the Motor Industry. Great to have you with us on the programme, Jim. Now, how will the EU's tariff reduction on Tesla vehicles impact the broader EV market in Europe?
I think it's very much to do with the equalisation process that the EU were looking at. They believed that China was subsidising from an already dominant position, that China controls 95% of the world's supply of batteries, and with their Belt and Road strategy into Africa, most of the raw materials. And what they've done is investigate and say, well, how much additional help is the manufacturers getting in China by comparison to somebody who is operating in Europe? And they found that Tesla was still getting some benefit in as much as they were getting batteries at lower than cost price, but also were getting some additional grants on land and building. And so therefore the EU have imposed a 9%. When it comes to SAIC, which is obviously owned by the Communist Party and the Chinese government, they've imposed 36.3%. So it's going to have a benefit of making Teslas more competitive, because obviously the Chinese product is also the other Chinese manufacturers have a cost advantage anyway, but it does in fact give them a better chance of making a greater penetration in Europe.
Now, what's led to the sharp decline in China's EV exports to the EU this year?
Well, it was partly for a range of things. I think people were suspicious about what was going to happen on the taxation side, but also there are one or two security issues concerning the Chinese products. Where is, if you buy a Chinese vehicle, where is the data going to be stored? What access will the Chinese companies have to digital cameras and the interconnectivity of the new vehicles coming in? So there is a general sort of cloud and questioning taking place within Europe as to really where this fits. BYD is obviously a very strong brand and produces a very competitive product. And so therefore, I think Europe is just trying to balance out these forces. And in the market generally in Europe, there's a kind of resistance to electric vehicles at the moment anyway, because there's going to be a change in technology with solid state coming in. So therefore, there's a reluctance to purchase now or get involved too early, because obviously going further down the line, the change in technology to solid state is going to be transformational.
Right, and China has now retaliated against the EU's tariffs with an investigation into EU dairy products. How could this escalate trade tensions?
I think it's going to be a tit-for-tat sort of situation going on for a while. China doesn't like anybody confronting it when it comes to their expansionist sort of policy, commercial expansionist policy in Europe. And so therefore they will retaliate back. Whether or not it's just a token gesture or whether it's more serious, remains to be seen, because I don't think there's sufficient evidence that Europe is overproducing massively on dairy products and dumping in China. And so I think there is that kind of tit for tat sort of mentality going on, whereby you confront one side and they will come back with something else.
All right, Jim Saker, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your analysis.